This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset. Going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. The internet almost shut down because they're like, are you blind? Do you not know what's going on out there? Do you not see what's happening?
You just did 250,000 cold calls. Congratulations.
Welcome to the Pipe Podcast today. Yeah, we're running on a Monday. I'm here with Amy Franko. Amy, so glad that you're here today, and I'm just so glad that you were able to be on the show with us. And if you're watching and listening, you're going to get some great sales info today. I'm the CEO and founder of Sales Arbiter. This is the Pipe Podcast, and PIPE obviously standing for sales process, sales initiatives, sales prospecting, and sales experiences. So that's what we talk about here on the PIPE. And I've got Amy Franko. I just want to jump right into it, if you're okay with that, Amy. Tell our viewers, our listeners.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Tell our viewers and listeners, like, what part of the world you run, like what you do, like tell us a little bit more about, Amy Franko and obviously, your organization.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, Kristen. I'm so excited about this conversation. And a few of those folks in your intro video, I know those guys. I know those men and women. So it's exciting to be here. So a little bit about my background. I got my start in technology. So for the first 10 years of my career, I was in tech. I worked for companies like IBM and Lenovo, and I was a quota carrying salesperson for a good majority of that time, but all client-facing roles. So I sold personal computing hardware solutions into a variety of different types of industries. And then about 15 years ago, I took the leap into entrepreneurship, started my own organization, took a little bit of a pivot and got into learning and development. And that has morphed and evolved over the years. And what it looks like today is I work with a variety of industries, mostly high growth, mid-market, Fortune 1000 sized organizations. I work with their CEOs, their sales leaders, sales teams, on anything from strategy to sales leadership development to skill development to advising boards. And it's an intersection of all the things that I love to do, sales leadership and sales related. So that's a little bit about me and what I get to do every day.
That is so exciting. That is so great. And you had mentioned at the front end of the podcast, you had said, oh, I know some of those other people. I've seen some of those, some of those faces before. And you're right. We have been so blessed just to have some great people on this podcast. And now we've got you, which is another, exciting opportunity for us. So I'm so glad. And, I'd like to dig into a little bit about, kind of what's become, part and parcel of what you do, and kind of how you talk about sales, Amy, and how you really start to, migrate this idea, within the organizations and the individuals that you serve, which is leading in modern sales strategy and sales culture. So would you mind just kind of if we can just dig into that a little bit, and what does that mean? Like, leading in modern sales strategy and sales culture, what does that mean to you?
Oh gosh, those sales strategy and sales culture are so interconnected. My philosophy is your sales strategy, whether or not you're conscious of it, your sales strategy ultimately models your sales culture. Do you have a healthy, productive sales culture, or do you perhaps have some challenges in your sales culture? Because whatever is happening within that culture, and many times leaders are sometimes the last to know. Many times leaders are the last to know what their sales culture truly is, and then they see it in results, strong results or lack thereof. It's reflected in sales strategy. So from a philosophical standpoint, they're connected, and looking at both your sales culture and your sales strategy for clues on whether you're going to create success or whether you have some work to do.
Yeah. So you mentioned a healthy and productive sales culture. Let's talk about that. Like in some of the organizations that you served, Amy, like what are some of the key indicators that you walk in and you say, okay, maybe this maybe this opportunity is going to be a little not as hard as some of the others that I've served or that I've worked with and for, because they seem to have a healthy sales culture, which is a good start, right? But what are some of the things that you look for in an organization when you start to unpack, yeah, they seem to have, this organization seems to have a good healthy sales culture, and here are the reasons why.
Yeah, right. So what are the clues and the reasons that I'm looking for? So if I'm working with an organization, and perhaps I'm meeting a CEO or a sales leader for the first time, and they're interested in potentially working with me, I is listening to your intro, Crispin, where you talked about, I might want the sale, but I don't need the sale. That's a very important mindset. I think I agree with that 100%, especially when you're looking at the types of organizations, that I'm interested in working with. So a couple of the clues or success criteria that I'm looking for is, first of all, my access to either the CEO or the president of the organization, or that highest level sales leader, just depending on the size of the organization. I'm looking for access to them, and I'm also looking at their approachability, their willingness to be objective or want to be objective about what's going well in the organization and where there are opportunities for improvement. I'm also looking for things like, do they use data in a smart way to create high performance, not toxic performance, but high performance, healthy performance? Do they believe in having the right processes and structures? Do they believe in wanting to skill up their teams? They may not have all of those things in place, which is why they want to talk to me, but they believe that they're important, and they want to put them in place because they see the potential for creating the right sales culture. So those are a couple of the things that I'm looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so now, I consider myself a pretty decent listener. I maybe if you talk to my wife, she'd say differently, but I consider myself to be a pretty good active listener, right? And so one of the things that you said before that was, when I am interested in working with an organization. That's an interesting, like when you talk about mindset, am I interested in working with this organization, or don't I think there, or there may not be a fit for us, because this may not be an organization that I want to work with. Would you be willing or open to just talking a little bit about maybe one of those experiences? We'll leave the name of the company out of it, but one of those experiences where you walked in and you kind of went in and you started to look at the landscape of the organization, the leadership, what they were looking to accomplish, and then at the end of the day, you disqualified them. You disqualified them from working with you, right? And so, could you talk a little bit about that with our listeners as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you picked up on that. And that probably is the difference, Crispin, between maybe the work that you and I do. But then if I kind of contrast that against a sales leader in an organization, a larger organization, or a sales professional in a larger organization, the concepts are the same, but you might apply them differently, because somebody who owns a sales territory, or you have a certain customer set that you're working with, you don't always have the luxury of choosing every single client that you get to work with, but you do have the ability to qualify them out, which is exactly what what you're alluding to. And in a healthy sales culture, there is not only the philosophy and the concept, but the processes and the tools in place to help sales organizations, leaders, individual sellers to qualify in or qualify out the right customers and clients, so that you can have healthy growth, first of all, healthy top line and bottom line growth, but you also have customers and clients that are the right fit for you philosophically. You want to work with them, you want to help them grow. So having that ability to qualify structurally in the organization, and then also have the individual skill set to qualify, is really critical. To answer your question directly, which was, you asked me about an experience from my own life, I am thinking about an organization. This is a couple of years ago, so it's fairly recent. This was an organization that on the surface had excellent fit, right size of organization for me, access, or so I thought, to the right levels of the organization for decision making processes. But after a lot of fits and starts and proposals that went into the black hole, if anybody has had that experience multiple times, and this is where I'm learning from my own experiences, if you will. What I realized was, in the end, the lack of decisiveness on the part of the individuals I was working with, and also just the fact that it took so long to get to any type of decision, I ultimately had to make the decision to disqualify. It took me longer than what I would have liked, but I ultimately had to realize that this was not an opportunity that would ever come to fruition because of lack of decisiveness on the part of leadership. They also had some things going on in the organization that would have precluded them from really being able to move forward. So sometimes you get the information, it comes to you, not always right away, but as it comes to you, it starts to become new information with which I used to make a decision to disqualify them. And just very professionally, politely said, I'm not sure that this is a fit for us to work together. And I'd like to stay connected when you're in a position to be able to move forward on some of these things. But I don't see anything right now. And there's a true confidence that you have to have or model in order to be able to do that. And you have to have great pipeline. You have to always be cultivating opportunities, so you have the confidence to say no to the ones that aren't the right fit.
Gosh, so many good nuggets there. I mean, you have to have a great pipeline. You have to you have to be willing to sit tall in the saddle. Like my mother used to say, you walk in with your head held high and you leave with your head held high. And whatever happens in the middle, you handle with professionalism and courtesy, right? And that's really,
I like that.
Yeah. And it's great. So let's talk a little bit about you. I don't know how you had time to do it with everything else that you do, Amy, but you wrote a book called The Modern Seller, right? And that's available now and out, and I'm sure that there are some, there's great lessons in there, and just talking more about what that modern seller looks like in now 2023. But let's just talk about, like, at the end of that book, Amy, when somebody's turning those last few pages, right? What were you hoping, or what would you hope that they would get? Like 1, 2, 3 things that they would get out of reading, that book of yours. What are you hoping that they walk away with?
If I were to choose maybe 3 things that I'd like them to walk away with,
Sure.
first of all, and maybe this is a little selfish on my part, but I want them to see it as a field guide that they come back to. If somebody comes to me and says, I have highlights and sticky notes and all kinds of notes in the margins of the book. Now, I like a physical book and I like to write notes in it. And if somebody comes to me and says that they were able to do that, then I know that it really is something that they could internalize and grow from. So first of all,
Mhm.
I always love it when somebody says, I took this to heart. I took a lot of notes, and there were things in here that I know that I could take away and practice. So that's the first thing. I'd say maybe the second thing is to understand that our role as a modern seller is to help our customers and prospective customers, guide them on the decision path to
Mhm.
make decisions that are great for their business. Ideally, if it's a fit, they're working with us. That may not always be the case, but seeing yourself in a different light as that real trusted advisor, which is a little bit of a buzzword, but do you really embody being a trusted advisor? And then the last thing I would want them to walk away with was, there are 5 capabilities of the modern seller that I get into in the book. Is there one that really stood out above all the others that you want to put your time and energy into, and really work on that? So those are probably the top 3 things I'd really like for someone to walk away with.
That's great. That's great. Just a little background on the book. Like, how long did it take you to put it together when you were building it conceptually? Like, and I know it's based on obviously experiences that you've had in your life, but just for those that maybe don't know the story, how long did it take you to put the story together the way that you really felt like you wanted to tell it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I half joke it was a 20-year dream and a 20-month project. By the time I got down to it, probably like you,
Yeah.
I'm someone who's in my business as much as I'm working on my business. So there were a couple pauses in between there. So for anybody who has a goal, a big goal that you're working toward, sometimes those pauses are helpful. The catalyst for the book was part experience and part my own experience, and partially my experience with watching what my clients were going through. I'm a learning and development person at heart. When I think about the last 15 years of my business, it's as much about learning and development and leadership development as it is about sales results. So the opportunity to blend those things together it's just a real privilege. And so the catalyst was the learning and development person in me, who was watching what my clients were, my successful clients and maybe clients that were struggling. What were the things that the successful clients were doing really well? And as I watched that, and as I reflected on my own experiences, it really distilled itself into 5 major capabilities, and I like to think of them as the skills behind the skills. So they are the
Mhm.
things that will help you to be better at the everyday processes of leading a team, or maybe you're an individual seller, because I really wrote the book for both groups. So the 5 capabilities are that a modern seller is agile, entrepreneurial, holistic, social, and an ambassador. And
Mhm.
even if you just work on 1 or 2 of those capabilities, you will really grow your sales intelligence and your leadership intelligence, and be able to do
Hmm.
great work and to be really successful as either an individual or a leader. And you'll see connections into the other capabilities, but those are the skills behind the skills that if we work on those,
Yeah.
it will make us better sellers and leaders.
That's really great. That's great stuff. And I love how you say work on it because you know our craft sometimes doesn't get the best representation. We people think, oh,
I agree.
he's a Crispin Cruz, he's a sales guy, and that's the way that I say it in that tonality, because that's typically the way people think about sales people in general, right? We don't have the best reputation, and a lot of times, and so the level of professionalism that you bring to your organization, as well as your clients as well, is just key. And then the other piece is that, is it really any is I mean, do we really ever stop working on those things, Amy? Like, isn't it something that we have to continuously work on, and be really these change, the accept the ability to change and to be fluid in the way that, and maybe even pivot quickly when things aren't working.
Yeah, I really believe that we're always working. I'm always a work in progress. There are things that I know that I've done to be successful to this point in my career and in my life. And it may sound a little cliched, but I really believe that sales skills are also life skills. This is the best profession that we can be in. Really, I believe it. It's we can direct our own destiny, and not to say that it doesn't have its stressors and its challenges. It's a stressful profession, right? Um,
Mhm.
but it's also one where I always felt like I could direct my own destiny and I could move myself forward. Now, for a time, that looked like being a seller in an organization, and now it's being a seller for my own organization and also doing client delivery. But yeah, I think you nailed it. I really think that if anybody listening or watching this it feels like you have a sense of, gosh, I don't want to work on this. I don't want to work on myself. That might be a place to pause and really take some stock in what it is that you want to be doing and working toward, because it takes a lot of mental fortitude and
Mm.
emotional wherewithal and resilience to be in this profession. But the rewards are just awesome. I couldn't think of a better place to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. And it's so like everything that you're saying right now is resonating so loudly with me. Like when we put through people through sales training and when we're talking about that, it's like when you think about the word prospect, and I've said this many times before, you know, why don't we just simply treat everyone like a prospect? Like, I mean, the active listening that it takes, the questioning strategies, making them the center of the, kind of the universe as you're trying to uncover, what's the compelling reason for us to even have this conversation, right? I mean, all of those things, that are, and what you said is just resonates so loudly with me. You're not learning sales skills. You're learning life skills, life lessons, that you can apply to those individuals that you're engaging with every single day, whether they're in your inner circle, whether they're your, family and friends, whether they're coworkers or true prospects that you're trying to engage with. Like, it's just so good, Amy. It's so good. It's so good. Um, yeah.
There's
Any comments on
there's
that?
an article. Yeah, no, you just got me thinking. There's an article that I wrote not too long ago, and I did an article and I did a master class for a client on the trusted advisor, the concept of trusted advisor. And as I was writing that content and really reflecting on it, I kind of had this aha moment that I realized, gosh, to be a trusted advisor, you really have to first trust yourself. And
Mm,
when you trust yourself and you are part of that's doing the work on yourself, you don't have to have all
yeah.
the answers in order to trust yourself. You have to have the inner wherewithal to, like when I just listen to you speak, like having empathy for your customer situations, the right amount of empathy, being an active listener, really trying to understand what's happening in their business so you can be someone that guides them on their decision making path. You have to trust yourself first. And I think it goes back to that idea of always working on ourselves, not from a sense of lack, right? Like that eats away at your self confidence, but from a sense of I've gotten myself to this point and I want to continue to get better. So I'm willing to
Mm.
do the work so I can trust myself to be a good advisor to my customers and clients.
Wow, it's so good. I mean, I think we should be charging for this, Amy. I'm telling you, because they're getting so much value out of it. Um, okay,
That's the
so
salesperson in us, Kristen,
yeah, I
charging for
know,
it,
I know.
right?
I'm like, how do we monetize this? How do we monetize this? All right, so let's talk a little bit about this year. Okay, we're in 2023. Things are happening. The market is very fluid right now. What are three things that you would recommend that organizations absolutely need to do to be focused on growing their company revenues, growing their company, getting their organization to that next level? What are three things? And I'm going to ask you for three because I think there's a power in three. That's just me. But what are the three things that you think they should be focusing on in 2023 to really grow their organizations?
I like how you described that as fluid. That's a good descriptor. um, Yeah. So if I were to choose three, if I'm in the office of a CEO or maybe an EVP of sales, and we were having this conversation, and that person asked me, I would say the first thing is, from your seat where you are, your level of decisiveness about where to take the company or your sales teams, your sales organization, is really critical. That your own clarity about where you want to head is what ultimately gets communicated to the teams. So if I just give you a very quick example, I was working with a client on their sales strategy, and we were working on a lead generation work stream. And part of that was understanding growth potential and bottom line potential. And there was just a little bit of lack of clarity about how we were describing those things. And the conversation, or the aha moment, was, gosh, as for those of us that are designing the strategy, myself, along with the leaders I was working with, we need to get crystal clear on how we describe things and where we're going, so that we can communicate that. If we're not clear, it's impossible for our teams to be clear. So that would be the first thing, is just that clarity with the information that you have today, right? It might change
Mhm.
down the road, but the information that you have today. So that's the
Yeah,
first
makes
thing.
sense.
The second thing is, oh, go ahead. Did you want to ask me something about that?
No, no, no. It makes sense. Makes sense. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not slowing you down.
Got it.
I'll
All
let you
right.
take a drink of
All
water,
right.
but
So
that's
that's
it.
the first one. That's it. That's it. Keep going. I'd say the second thing is, I would be looking at customer retention. And that has been a theme of the clients I've been working with, is customer retention, and making sure you are not experiencing regrettable churn or loss of your customers. So you're not having a leaky bottom line because we're losing customers that we don't want to lose. So I would be looking at customer retention. And then the last thing that I would be asking myself, if I was a CEO or a EVP, a sales leader, is, where are my greatest opportunities for smart growth? No matter what's happening outside, what's maybe the true north of our smart growth opportunities? So I'm not in the mindset of always looking at mitigating risk, but I'm looking and taking a growth mindset of where our greatest opportunities are.
Thank you for that. Jeez, that's good stuff. So now I got to ask, because now I'm going to pull back a little bit and just talk more about how you do it. Okay? Because and I want this to translate to those other, those others that are listening and watching. I want the translation to be something like this. Listen, Amy is an author. She's a speaker, trainer, mentor, sales consultant, sales guru. I mean, I can go on. Okay. Um, how do you do it all? Like, how do you manage all of the things that you're doing, serve your clients at a high level, right? And then continue to push the ball forward and grow your organization? I mean, Amy, there's got to be something in there when we talk about process, organization, structure, that you can share, with those that are listening and watching as well.
Yeah, when you're saying all of those descriptors, it's like, gosh, there's a lot of things that I do, if you will.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of things I do, but part of it is, gosh, if I were to kind of peel back the layers on a few things, probably internally, I am a driven and self-motivated person. I always have been. I'm the oldest of five. I have four younger sisters, so there's probably something to that birth order thing, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I've always been internally driven. I would say that what has served me well is, that, like, I'll call them habits or discipline. The small habits that I try to build into my personal life and my professional life to help set me up for success. The environment would be a way to describe it. Am I in an environment? Do I surround myself with the right people? Am I in an environment that is healthy and productive? Not unlike a sales culture. So I'm always looking for ways to improve some of those habits. So for example, I'm a big workout person. I've always been into sports as a kid, and now as an adult. So how can I find those things that I really enjoy doing and I'm passionate about outside of sales that fuel my tanks? So I enjoy working out. I enjoy getting outside. I look for those little habits that I can build in that could make me better. Um, I am a process oriented person. I do like process and structure. I like it to a point though. If it's too over engineered or too complicated, I don't, I like to have a little bit of freedom as well. So I look for those ways to support myself, but not to have so much structure that it feels like it's weighing me down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's probably another thing. One of the things I've been working on over the last, say, 6 months is the power of removing things from the business that just aren't maybe quite a right fit. So they were
Mm,
maybe 5 years ago or even a year ago, but they aren't things that I'm necessarily passionate about now. And rather
mm,
than try to hold on to those things, I try to remove them so I could make space for other things potentially, in the future. So kind of that
yeah.
power of removing things has been helpful for me too.
Yeah.
So,
Mm,
those are probably a few things in my own life that I've been working on, like that idea of always working on ourselves, that I've
mhm.
I've been doing to do all the things I'd love to do, but also still have space for life and family. Like I had my family in town this entire weekend, and they left yesterday afternoon. I want to have space to do all of that, and I didn't want to work on
Right.
the weekend. So it's trying to
Right.
figure out those habits and those structures that can still help me make time for what I really also want to be doing. And I love my
That-
work. Like my work is kind of a part of who I am, and I love
mhm.
it. And so that helps too.
It's great stuff. It's just great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So, I'll say this last piece. So we typically, and oh, part of, again, going back to trainings that I participated in or even that I've given, we talk about acting, the being a role, being an actor and acting the part, and understanding,
Okay.
sales sometimes is a role, right? Sometimes you just have to play the role. And
Mhm.
so it's interesting because, I was such a fan of James Lipton, and I used to love the Inside the Actor Studio. So when we, I always ask these questions, and we call it the Sales Arbiter 7, but I always give him credit for this because, just little pieces of information that maybe, the listeners or the viewers don't know about you. And so I thought, if you're a game to go through the Sales Arbiter 7 with me, I'd love to go through that with you as well.
Yeah, let's do it. This is so
All right,
interesting.
sounds
I
good.
cannot wait to hear what you're going to ask me.
That's great. That's great. Okay. So, um, so Amy, let's talk about this. What is your favorite word?
Oh, my favorite word.
Mhm.
Um, I actually have a favorite phrase, if this helps. I always love the phrase "just do it" from Nike. It's something that I probably heard a lot as a kid growing up, and I love the action piece of it.
I love it. I love it. Just do it. Just do it. Just get it done. That's great. Okay. What is your least favorite word?
Mm, Probably the word can't,
Hmm.
cannot. Um,
Can't do it.
and
Mhm.
I choose that in the context of maybe sales or sales leadership because I like the idea of being, excuse me, of being decisive and consciously making a choice. It may be not that I can't, but maybe I won't for certain reasons. So I'll
Mm,
go with can't.
that's great. That's great. Thank you. Okay. What's something that could make your day?
Ooh. So And I didn't share this with you in my self introduction, but in my spare time, I get my leadership fix by being the board chair for the Girl Scouts here in my
Right.
local area. So we have 18,000 girls in
Mhm.
30 counties in central and southern Ohio. So something that could make my day is reading about or connecting with one of those girls or young women who are doing something in our
Mhm.
community. That always energizes me and gets me fired up.
That's awesome. And we just got through cookie time, didn't we? Didn't we just get through cookie time? I think we
Yes.
got,
Yes.
yeah, I think we've got like 10 boxes. I think we do
Perfect.
here.
I love it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love it.
we're big supporters. My wife was also in the Girl Scouts, so yes, very good. What's something that could ruin your day?
Mm, something that could ruin my day. Hmm. I would say if there was maybe someone close to me in my life that was going through some kind of struggle, or just something happened to someone that I care about, that was just bad news or something like that. I think I would
Yeah,
I would go
yeah.
go with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Something impacted someone close to you in a negative way. Yeah,
Yeah,
makes sense.
right.
Makes
Yep.
sense. What's a sound or a noise that you love?
Ooh, I have an alarm clock that is it has different like outdoor like nature sounds. And
Mhm.
so there's one that I really love that's a waterfall sound. And that's the alarm that wakes me up in the morning.
Yeah. Is there something that connects you to that waterfall that, that you just love about it, or an experience that you've had,
I
or
don't know. Maybe it's because I'm an Aquarius, outside of my birth sign, I'm a big outdoor person. I love
Mhm.
travel. I love nature. I love getting outdoors. So anything like that, I just love all of those sounds.
That's great. That is great. Thank you for that. What's a sound or noise that you hate?
Hmm. I don't know. Maybe the sound of people whining or complaining.
I knew that was probably coming from one of your previous answers. Like, it's like, don't complain, don't whine, just do it.
I sound
I
so
love
hard.
I love it. I love it. There's definitely something to that birth order thing. I'm telling you, there's definitely something
Right?
there.
Isn't that the truth? Maybe
Yeah,
whining or
yeah,
complaining without a really, really good reason. How about that?
yeah, right. There better be a good reason. That's right. I love it. Okay, last one. What profession other than your own would you have liked to attempt?
Oh. When I was growing up, I was really interested in two things. I loved I loved history, like current events and history. I
Mhm.
also loved journalism and writing. And so there was a time in my life where I thought I might want to go to like broadcast journalism school. So if I
Mhm.
was not doing my own profession, I would really enjoy being a journalist, like a TV broadcaster journalist.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. See, that our listeners or viewers would have never known that. They would have never known that. That's great. Well, good stuff. Okay, Amy, tell them how to find you. How do they find you? Where do they find you? What's the easiest way to get in contact with you if they're interested in, just getting some of your, obtaining you or your services, or just talking, sales or business with you? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'll give you two places. So the first place is on amyfranko.com. There's a lot of free resources out there. Right now, probably one of my most popular ones is the sales planning template that you can download right off of the site to help you think strategically and tactically about your growth goals. So that's the first place. And then secondly, you're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Please let me know that you connected with me through Crispin and the podcast here. I always like to connect with people there.
That's great. That's great. Amy, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on today. It was a real pleasure having you on. And I always close every podcasts like this. So keep selling and have fun doing it. Thanks so much for attending and watching today. Bye-bye now. This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset. Going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. The internet almost shut down because they're like, are you blind? Do you not know what's going on out there? Do you not see what's happening?
You just did 250,000 cold calls. Congratulations.